Agriculture is a devolved function set out in paragraph 1 and of part 2 of the 4th schedule of the Constitution. By facilitating the development of the cotton industry in the country, the bill seeks to ensure that cotton farmers have opportunities to enhance cotton farming and value addition to cotton products. This will in turn facilitate the growth and development of the economy of the counties that produce cotton and the country at large. The bill therefore concerns county governments in terms of Article 110, Subarticle 1A of the Constitution. That bill is by the Senator Beth Siango, and it has been lined up for the first reading in the Senate this afternoon. It comes at order number 8. At order number 9, there will be a resumption of debate on a motion by the Chairperson Standing Committee on Finance and Budget. The motion is on the adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on the 2023 Budget Policy Statement. Thereafter, at order number 10, there will also be a resumption of debate on a motion by the Chairperson Standing Committee on Finance and Budget, and it is on the adoption of the report.
Beseech you to behold with abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come and our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Sergeant at times, kindly ring the bell for 5 minutes. We do not have quorum now.
If you're just joining us, the business of the Senate is yet to begin. The House lacks quorum, and the quorum bell is currently being rung to allow members to walk into the chambers and take their seats to allow the Senate to undertake the business of the day. This afternoon, the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2022, will be debated. This is for the second reading. And then the other bill that is also scheduled for debate for the second reading is the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, Senate Bills number 6 of 2022. The debate on this had already begun before it was interrupted on Wednesday, 1st March 2023. There are two bills which have been lined up for debate for the second reading. The County Vocational Education and Training Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2022, and the Preservation of Human Dignity and Enforcement of Economic and Social Rights Bill, Senate Bills number 7 of 2022. There is a motion which is active in the Senate, and it was debated last on Tuesday, 28th February 2023. The balance of time there is 2 hours 41 minutes. The motion is by the Senator Gloria Roba on the provision of free sanitary towels to end period poverty. The senators have already begun debate on this, and it comes at order number 15. At order number 16 is the motion by the Senator for Marsabit County, Senator Mohammed Chute, and it's on the institution of measures to curb incessant high electricity costs in Kenya. That motion by the Honorable Senator for Marsabit County comes at order number 16. The Senator is concerned that private power generating companies, popularly referred to as independent power producers, only supply 28% of power to KPLC, but account for 47% of power purchase costs, calling for the need to enhance energy management in Kenya. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves that the Standing Committee on Energy to undertake an inquiry into contracts signed by the IPPS detailing the cost, capacity and duration of the contractual agreements and their implications on affordability of electricity in the country. That is one of the pleadings by the Senator for Marsabit County, Senator Mohammed Chutem. And coming in at order number 17 is a motion by the Honorable Senator Wahome Wamatinga and Senator Mohammed Faki. The motion is on enhancing highway safety and convenience. And at order number 18 is a motion by the Honorable Senator Enoch Wambua on drought mitigation. It's a motion on drought mitigation program in public schools. At order number 19 is another motion by Senator Agnes Kavindu on the compensation to the Kenyan victims of the 1998 bombing of the United States Embassy in Nairobi. Those are some of the businesses that the senators will be engaging in this afternoon.
Clerk, first order, please.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, a visiting delegation from the County Assembly of Baringo. The delegation comprises members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee who are on a 5-day study tour with the counterpart committee of the Senate. Honorable Senators, I request each member of the delegation to stand when called out so that you may be acknowledged in the Senate tradition. Honorable Ernest Kibet Tarus, the Chairperson, Budget and Appropriations Committee, and MCA. The Honorable Simon Kimunge Kiplagat, Vice Chairperson, Budget and Appropriations Committee. The Honorable Lawi K. Talam, Member of the Budget Committee. The Honorable Maria Chepuriot Losilei, Member of the Budget and Appropriations Committee. The Honorable Alex Kiprono Kurui, Member of the Budget and Appropriations Committee. The Honorable Lurien Sam Locales, Member of the Committee. The Honorable Ben Koech, Member of the Committee. Mr. Emmanuel Kubai, Principal Hansard Reporter. Mr. Jaffred Kipkorir Chepsoi, Assistant Director HRM and Development. Mr. Kiptun K. Jonathan, Clerk of the Committee. Mr. Ronald Chirutich, Principal Physical Analyst. Mr. Motonyo Piracol Dennis, Clerk Assistant to the Committee. Mr. Wilson Kachem Kiptui, Accounts Assistant, and lastly, Mr. Amos K. Chirogoni, Sergeant at Arms. On behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I extend a warm welcome and wish you a fruitful visit to the Senate. Thank you. I will allow, is the Senator for Baringo in the House? Kindly take the floor and make your welcoming remarks to the delegation from Baringo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is the second time members of Baringo County Assembly have had a chance to visit the House. Mr. Speaker, I would like to very sincerely thank the members who are members of the Budget Committee of the Assembly of Baringo, to welcome them to this upper house. Mr. Speaker, Baringo County, as I said that time, and I want to repeat again today, is known in this country as a county that has been able to stand firm and to uphold democracy in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when the infamous BBI was being debated in the country, most counties, Mr. Speaker, county assemblies were shy. They were not prepared to take a position and either reject or approve the BBI. Mr. Speaker, Baringo County became the first county, Mr. Speaker, that came out very strongly and rejected the BBI. Mr. Speaker, thereafter, the High Court of the Republic of Kenya followed the Baringo position. The Court of Appeal, the same. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the Supreme Court, the highest, the apex court in the land, again agreed with the County of Baringo. Mr. Speaker, I am proud as a Senator of Baringo that today some of the members who were in that house are in this chamber today, Mr. Speaker, visiting this house. I want to thank them, and I want to affirm to them that as their Senator, Mr. Speaker, I will be in the forefront to stand with them and to advance democracy in this country, Mr. Speaker. I want to welcome them again to learn from this house. Mr. Speaker, there has been some situations in this country where county assemblies have had some fracas, some confusion, some fights. There is a lot of order in Baringo County, Mr. Speaker. And as we move forward as a country, Mr. Speaker, the devolution which we have embraced as a country, Mr. Speaker, is our business as Senate. And Mr. Speaker, as the Senator of Baringo County, being a member of this Senate, Mr. Speaker, we will work together to ensure that democracy, to ensure that devolution, which is the only way we can take more resources, Mr. Speaker, to our people, is actually upheld. We are now in the process of making our budget, Mr. Speaker. We are now in the budget cycle. And Mr. Speaker, my appeal to this House, already, Mr. Speaker, recently we were able to pass that law in December, where we had more money going to our counties. Baringo, Mr. Speaker, in that particular law, received 800 million. We will continue to work together under your leadership, Mr. Speaker, and our counties to ensure that counties are resourced to have enough resources to serve our people. I want to welcome my fellow leaders from Baringo. I'm proud of you people. We will move together and ensure Baringo remains the county that has already been recognized to stand firm and rejected the infamous BBI. Mr. Speaker, under your leadership, counties which have problems, and I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, already our devolution committee in this House are beginning to ensure that if there is any issue in counties with challenges, they should move forward. And we will not hesitate in Baringo. If there is any issue, Mr. Speaker, myself as a senator, the colleagues in the county assembly, and the devolution committee of this House shall move forward so that we have our counties, Mr. Speaker, move and avoid the fights that are normally witnessed in other counties. I welcome them, and I want to tell them to learn from this House and ensure that you also add value to our county in Baringo. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I do have further communication. In the public gallery this afternoon, we have 58 students accompanied by 5 teachers from Ualimo Secondary School in Nairobi City County who are in the Senate on an education tour. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. I'm not seeing Senator Sifuna. I will pick a Nairobi delegation. Senator Tabitha, please welcome the students.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that opportunity. Let me take this good opportunity this afternoon to welcome the students in this beautiful county of Nairobi. As leaders of this country, we are happy to see you in the education system. Mine is to urge you, as the younger generation, to pursue your goal of education, because as I've always stated and as I've always said and as I've always encouraged, I've always said that education is what your parents can always give you and nobody can be able to take away from you. I've always stated that generations have changed. We are in a digital space. We are in a Western time where matters or cultures have actually changed over time. I urge you, the generation that we set these laws for, that you take up the role and follow what is good, take what is right, and that can be able to positively, open your future goals to what you want to pursue. Also, politics is a career. I encourage you to follow suit. We are here, we started from far. I started from being a pharmacy student. I'm a pharmaceutical student, still currently pursuing my PhD at the University of Nairobi. And I want to tell you, education has no end. Each day is a learning day to the youth generation. I take this opportunity to also state that matters LGTB normally sometimes have been stated to start from the younger generation. I take this floor today to urge you, the generation, that we set the culture, because we are Africans. We set the culture moving forward, that some of these Western things, you, the younger generation, as we guide you, we kindly urge you, we kindly request you not to entertain the Western world of LGTB. Strongly, I rebuke it. And I ask you also to always kindly listen to your parents, put God first, and all doors shall be opened unto you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order, clerk.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion.
What is your point of order, Senator Wambua?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order pursuant to Standing Order 37 to seek leave of the Senate to adjourn to discuss a definite matter of urgent national importance, namely the decision of the Supreme Court of Kenya in NGOs Coordination Board versus Eric Gitari and 5 others in petition number 16 of 2019, which declared discrimination against lesbians, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community, LGBTQ, unconstitutional, and affirmed the rights of the community to form an association. Simameni bwana. Simameni bwana. Nini bwana? Wewe wacha hiyo neno bwana. No, I know.
Honorable Senators, I have indeed confirmed that the requisite threshold has been attained, and I direct that the Senate will adjourn at 5:30 to discuss the said motion. Thank you. Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
The Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a statement of business commencing Tuesday, the 7th of March, 2023, pursuant to Standing Order number 57. Mr. Speaker, sir, I hereby present the business of the Senate for the week commencing Tuesday, the 7th of March, 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, the status of legislative business is beginning to get heavy. There are 13 bills which are the second reading stage. 4 of these bills are scheduled in today's order paper at order number 11, 12, and 13 and 14, while the remaining 9 bills have been referred to the respective standing committees for consideration pursuant to Standing Order number 145. The Senate Business Committee will schedule these bills for second readings upon completion of the 30-day period for committees to consider bills. However, in the event that a standing committee tabled a report earlier than stipulated timeline, the Senate Business Committee will prioritize the bill for such reading. I feel I need to explain this, Mr. Speaker, that there are committees that have worked so well. The last 2 or 3 weeks I've spoken on the need for chairpersons of committees to expedite and prioritize business of bill and the committee reports being presented to this House before the stipulated timeline, Mr. Speaker. And there are committees, there are good chairpersons that have heeded this call, and therefore this is just an assurance to them that once the House is seized of the committee's report on a particular bill, even if that bill on the queue of bills to be considered before the House is listed way further, we shall give priority to such bills, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I urge committee members and chairpersons to give bills and their reports the consideration that is due unto them so that they can be quickly processed by this House. 5 other bills are undergoing concurrence pursuant to Article 110(3) of the Constitution and will be scheduled for the first reading upon the completion of this process. Mr. Speaker, we must register our appreciation with the cordial and collegiate relationship that you continue to enjoy with your counterpart, Senator Moses Masika Wetangula. Each time we refer to statements and bills that are under consideration under 110(3), despite the fact that there are other matters that are pending between the two houses, at least we do celebrate the fact that ever since the two of you took reins of Parliament, there is no particular bill that we can say ought to have come to the Senate and hasn't been sent to this House, Mr. Speaker. We appreciate that is the intention of our drafters of our Constitution. I don't think that they expected that we shall always have to battle it out in court, as has been the case in the previous 2 sessions of Parliament. However, Mr. Speaker, having said that, it is still my sincere hope that we shall conclude on the mediation process that is going on between us and the National Assembly, because we want to put this matter to rest with finality. In fact, if we can reach a point of agreement, Mr. Speaker, without having the Supreme Court issuing a determination, because we couldn't agree amongst the two houses, then the country will have won, Mr. Speaker. I hope that we shall conclude that process. I know that we still have a few days to run after the meeting that we had in attendance of a minority leader, myself, yourself, as well as a team from the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, sir, I cannot emphasize enough the need for the standing committees to expeditiously consider bills, refer to them and table reports pursuant to Standing Order number 148. I also urge the respective movers to be available in the chamber whenever their bills are scheduled in the order paper number 4. With respect to the petitions, members of the public continue to show their confidence in the Senate to hear and determine matters of concern to them. We have now received 6 petitions which have been committed to the respective committees pursuant to Standing Order number 238. I continue to urge respective committees. I continue to urge one second, I'll take that again. I continue to urge respective committees to consider these petitions expeditiously and to table the reports within the required 60-day period. I take this opportunity to request the chairpersons who are facing any challenges in processing business to bring these matters to my attention so that appropriate interventions, either through the liaison committee or the Senate Business Committee, may be made to address any bottlenecks. With respect to statements, there have been numerous sought pursuant to Standing Order number 53. I look forward to committee chairpersons making reports on the statements in the coming days. I continue to encourage senators and the respective standing committees to identify and come up with legislative intervention that will be converted into bills. Mr. Speaker, sir, in conclusion, on Tuesday the 7th of March 2023, the SBC will consider and approve business for the day. This is projected to contain business that will not have been concluded from today's order paper and any other business scheduled by the Senate Business Committee. The order paper for Wednesday, 8th March 2023 and Thursday, 9th March 2023 will as well contain business that will not be concluded on Tuesday, 7th and Wednesday, 8th, respectively. The SBC will also schedule any other business as well as petitions and statements pursuant to the standing orders. I thank you and hereby lay the statement on the table of the Senate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What is the point of order, Senator Mann?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, with your kind permission, 2 months ago I made a request for statement in relation to human-wildlife conflict in Makueni. And unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, I have not been called by the relevant committee to make a presentation nor received an answer on the same. Mr. Speaker, yesterday an elephant killed somebody in Kibwezi East, Mr. Speaker, and the Wananchi refused to let the body go till this afternoon when KWS went there together with policemen and tear-gassed Wananchi so that they could take away the body, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm really looking forward to an answer from the committee, an answer from the minister in charge of wildlife, an answer from the director of CID, of KWS. And Mr. Speaker, in this matter, it is now become a matter of criminal nature, in that there has been negligence or criminal negligence on the part of officers of KWS. Knowing very well the elephants are there, they've gotten reports. They just let them, wander around, and yet the county government has done a wire, and all they needed to do, Mr. Speaker, since Monday was just to take the animals across, and they are not able to come back to Kibwezi East. Mr. Speaker, the matter has really escalated, and I'm looking forward to see the DPP failure of the committee giving me any answers so that we can pursue criminal prosecution on criminal negligence charges on the death of this particular man, Mr. Speaker, so that then we can wake up the officers of KWS and they know when they neglect their duty and somebody dies, then they can be charged in a court of law, Mr. Speaker. I thank you and look forward to quickly receiving an answer on this particular matter so that we may save the people of Makueni from being killed by elephants. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The chairman of the Standing Committee on Lands, can we have an indication when that matter will be laid to rest due to the urgency of the matter?
Thank you.
What is your point of order, Senator Kenywa?
Asante Bwana Spika. Ni kweli huu usumbufu kwa hawa wanyama wamekuwa wakisumbua hata Laikipia. Tumeandika taarifa tukiuliza hayo maswali. Bwana Spika, ukitembelea sehemu ya Sironi, mtu ameshambuliwa na ndovu na kuuawa. Bwana Spika, mimea yetu yote imeharibiwa na ndovu. Ukienda sehemu ya Manguo, viboko wanashambulia watu, Bwana Spika. Na mimi sina shaka pangu rohoni, mwenyekiti ambaye najua ni senator wa kutoka Nyandarua Medhu, nimemsikiza katika mikutano mingi akisema yeye ni kiongozi wa wanyama, Bwana Spika. Sasa hawa wanyama inakaa wamemlemea, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo Medhu atumie lugha ambayo anaelewa vizuri, kwa sababu yeye mwenyewe, Bwana Spika, ndiye amekuwa akituambia kila mkutano, anasema yeye ni mwenyekiti wa mazingira na wanyama wako katika chini yake. Sijui sasa wanyama wamekaa juu yake, Bwana Spika, kwa sababu sasa amenyamaza kimya. Bwana Spika, leo tunamuomba Seneta Medhu aongee kuhusu viboko, aongee kuhusu hawa wanyama, ndio atuambie kiasi ya kazi ambayo ametenda, kwa sababu hawa wanyama wanatusumbua, Bwana Spika. Ukitembea Laikipia, kama si kiangazi kinatusumbua ni wanyama, kama si wanyama, Bwana Spika, ni hawa majangili wanaotuiba. Kwa hivyo siku ya leo, Bwana Spika, Seneta Medhu tunamngojea kwa hamu na gamu aweze kutujibu ili tuweze kutosheka. Asante Bwana Spika.
What is your point of order, Senator Chirange?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I raise understanding order number 1. I note with concerns, and I think I do register with your office, that sometimes there are issues that are of importance and very urgent. Is there a way through your office you give an order, and I don't know whether your Deputy Speaker is the chairperson of Liaison Committee, where if we have an urgent matter, like what Senator Manso and Senator Kinyu are putting across, the chairpersons or those specific committees can give progress report. For example, if an urgent matter comes before the House like today on Thursday, is there a way with your office and your secretariat, a progress report can be given at the next sitting, maybe probably on Tuesday or Wednesday, so that we avoid, I know 14 days and 7 days, and some of these matters, Mr. Speaker, are sometimes very urgent. It involves life, the issue of life and death. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I request understanding order number 1, by your powers, kindly, the chairpersons can be giving progress, especially on urgent and important matters. Because sometimes, Mr. Speaker, there are things which are urgent but not very important. Mr. Speaker, finally, is also to suggest through your office, if there are urgent issues, like, for example, what happened in Marsabit yesterday, or what is happening in wildlife, is there a possibility, through the guidance of your office, to give powers to these committees to make presence on the ground? Let them, even between Friday and Monday, your office can facilitate them so that the people of the Republic of Kenya can see that there is something happening. Mr. Speaker, if we can give directions on those issues as standing order number 1, then the House will be efficient in terms of its discharge of duty. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, Senator Chirange. That's a very noble issue that you've raised. It shall be discussed at the SBC, and a direction will be given, and it shall be communicated to the Liaison Committee. Senator Matthew, kindly proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. First and foremost, allow me to maybe first of all condole with the family from Kibwezi that was mentioned by the Senator for Makueni, who lost their loved one out of human-wildlife conflict. Mr. Speaker, while I confirm to him and Senator Kinyua, and indeed all the other senators who are here, that I serve as chairman of the committee that deals with wildlife. Our committee is broad. We deal with the forests and the animals that live within the forest. So I confirm, Mr. Chairman, that I'm the chairman in essence of the animals, the wildlife. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, sorry. I would want to commit that my committee, which is well represented today here, will give the matter the urgency that it deserves. But Mr. Speaker, even as we look at this matter, there is a deeper matter that will finally get seized off. When we are looking at the budget policy statement, there's something that my committee put as a, as a note that although all these conflicts between human and wildlife, government takes responsibility that they are supposed, the claims are supposed to be paid. We now have claims worth 4.2 billion that are supposed to be paid by the Ministry of Wildlife. In their budget, they have only provided 1 billion. So ultimately, that is why you are finding claims of 5 years have not been settled, Mr. Speaker. So even as we look at these issues, the ministry says that this time they are investing in conjunction with the Ministry for Environment and Forestry. They are investing in ensuring that they try and reduce the conflict. Because it's not about, Mr. Speaker, just speaking about certain claims. We should, certain claims is people who have lost their lives, people who have been caused very serious bodily harm. So the more we reduce the conflict, the better it is for all of us. The more the claims come down, the better for all of us. Instead of just, senator will come and then they will call the cabinet secretary, they will come and they will take responsibility, they will say that this happened, we are looking at this claim, but 5 years down the line, they will not have done anything. He has actually indicated that had KWS done something, what happened yesterday would not have happened. So they should work towards becoming proactive rather than chasing paying claims, accepting liabilities, and doing those things, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I commit that we shall be able to deal with this matter in not more than 7 days, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, this is just one of the many statements that are raised in this House every day, including today, Mr. Speaker. You look at the order paper, you see an issue to do with the human-wildlife conflict that will come to our committee. So, Mr. Speaker, then we must look for a way to ensure that we address this matter, maybe not once and for all, because it is not possible, because we are living with the animals, but ensure that we reduce these problems such that the elephants that are disturbing the people of Makueni will be taken to the forest. We need the elephants and we need the people. So, Mr. Speaker, I commit that in 7 days we shall be able to look at this matter.
Senator Tabitha Kerocha. What is your point of order, Senator Faki?
Mheshimiwa Spika, nimesimama kulingana na kanuni zako, hususan kanuni namba 5 kuhusiana na mavazi ya seneta ambao anastahili kuvaa akiwa katika chemba hii. Mheshimiwa Spika, seneta mwanamume atakana avae koti, kola, tai, suruali ndefu ama long socks na viatu ama nguo za huduma ama nguo za kidini. Mheshimiwa Spika, nimemwona ndugu yangu Seneta Chimera pale. Vazi alilovaa sidhani kama linaruhusiwa katika bunge hili. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa utoe mwongozo kuhusiana na vazi ambazo Mheshimiwa Chimera ameweza kuvaa katika bunge hili. Asante.
What is your point of order, Senator Kinyua?
Bwana Spika, nimemsikiza Senator Faki akitaja mavazi ambayo yanapaswa kuvaliwa, lakini kimwangalia Senator Chimera, Bwana Spika, amevaa mavazi ambayo yanakubalika katika jumba hili. Bwana Spika, amevaa kaunda suit ambayo nimekuwa nikimuona seneta wa kutoka Kisii akiwa amevaa, Bwana Spika, kila wakati. Bwana Spika, ukweli wa mambo ni ya kwamba pengine ndugu yangu Senator Faki kutoka Mombasa, kwa sababu amevaa miwani, Bwana Spika, tunaweza tukamkubalia pengine haoni vizuri, kwa sababu mimi niko karibu na Senator Chimera, naona amevaa vilivyo, Bwana Spika. Na ukimwona Bwana Spika, Senator Faki ako na miwani, Bwana Spika, kwa hivyo naweza nikamuia radhi. La Senator Chimera amevaa mavazi ambayo ni mazuri, Bwana Spika, na kwa sababu jana uliongea na ukasema ya kwamba mavazi ambayo hasa ni ya Kiafrika tunapasa tuyatilia mkazo kwa sababu ni vizuri tuseme ya kwamba Bwana Spika, utamaduni wetu unafaa zaidi na tuweze kuutukuza. Ni kama vile Bwana Spika ninavyoongea Kiswahili, wengine wanasema ya kwamba sipaswi kuongea Kiswahili kwa sababu mtu anayeongea Kiswahili ni kama hajaelimika vilivyo. Bwana Spika, anapaswa aongee lugha ya nyani Bwana Spika, ambayo ni Kiingereza. Kwa hivyo nikimwangalia Chimera ako sawa sawa Bwana Spika, na mimi hata ijapokuwa Bwana Spika sitaki kukuambia uamuzi utakaotoa, lakini kwangu mimi na wengi walioko hapa, hata mwenzake naona hata wakili wa kutoka Makueni hata anakubaliana na mimi kwa sababu anaona vizuri. Bwana Spika, nasema asante.
A rule on a point of order. What exactly is out of order of that dressing? So that I understand you. You have indeed read the Speaker's rule number 5, but what exactly is Senator Chimera breaching in that particular rule?
Mheshimiwa Spika, hakuna koti la mikono mifupi. Koti ni la mikono mirefu ambayo inatoka kutoka kwenye bega mpaka kwenye viganja. Mheshimiwa Spika, ili hatuwezi kusema kwamba ni koti. Hata kama ingekuwa ni kaunda suit, lakini hiyo ni kaunda suit ambayo ni ya mikono mirefu. Nguo ambazo anavaa Senator Onyonka, kaunda suit anavaa Senator Onyonka, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni ya mikono mirefu na inaziba sehemu hizi mpaka kwenye vitanga, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, Senator Joyce, nafikiri ungenipa nafasi niongee.
Senator Faki, just proceed with your explanation.
Lile vazi alilovaa Senator Chimera, Mheshimiwa Spika, sio vazi ambalo linakubalika kulingana na kanuni zako. Kama ingekuwa ni vazi la kienyeji tungeweza kumsamehe. Mheshimiwa Spika, kaunda suti si vazi la Kiafrika. Asante.
Honorable Senators, the Speaker's rule on dressing are very clear, especially if you look at rule number 5. And it goes to define what we are supposed to wear as we come to this house. And for avoidance of doubt, let me also read it out to all of us. That senators are required not to enter the chamber, lounge or dining room without being properly dressed. This means that a male senator will be dressed in a coat, collar, tie, long trousers, socks, and shoes, or service uniform, religious attire, or such other decent dressing as may be approved by the Speaker from time to time. The Honorable Senator Chimera is dressed in a kaunda suit. The definition of a coat does not include that it covers the entire arm. And I therefore rule that the senator is properly dressed. And if any event, as a speaker, I have the power from time to time to determine what a decent dress is. Using that power as a speaker, I rule that indeed Senator Chimera is decently dressed. Proceed. Senator Tabitha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53 to seek statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the status of resettlement of the informal settlers residing in Kasarani and Elbagon areas in Molo Sub-County, Nakuru County. In the statement, the committee should apprise the Senate on the progress made by the national government towards the settlement of the victims of East Mau, who are now residing at Kasarani and Elbagon in Molo Sub-County, and Nakuru East Pipeline, Nakuru County. State whether there is any allocation in the budget by the national government to resettle the victims. State if there has been any input by the national government to address the public petition on resettlement of East Mau Forest evictees, which was made to the committee, and explain why the East Mau evictees, unlike their counterparts from Bomet, Kericho, Baringo counties, have been resettled, have not been compensated. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Speaker, sir, I raise pursuant to Standing Order 53 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Lands, Environment and Natural Resources on the human-wildlife conflict in various areas of Nakuru County. In the statement, the committee should outline measures, if any, that the Kenya Wildlife Service has taken to deal with the rampant human-wildlife conflict in parts of Naivasha East, in particular Kiambogo Village, Longonot, Hell's Gate National Park, Kurusei North, Kurusei South in Nakuru County, where several residents have been killed and crops and properties destroyed by animals. Mr. Speaker, sir, I was raised in Naivasha sub-county, in a village, Kiambogo Village, and there people have 5 acres of land, and we were brought up there and educated and to become who we are to today. But today, as we speak, Kiambogo Village, they can't harvest any of their crop. And this is due to the Mount Longonot National
Senator
Park.
Tabitha, restrict yourself to reading of the statement. Don't debate it, do not explain it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, list all reported areas of human-wildlife conflicts occasioned by wild animals in Nakuru County from 2020 to date, stating the remedial measures taken, including compensation of families of those killed or maimed by wild animals, and spell out measures being put in place by the government to provide a lasting solution to human-wildlife conflict in the said areas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Beth Siengo. If you've nothing to say, you can as well just have a seat.
Thank you.
And senators, as you walk in, don't just queue for purposes of queuing, because I pick the names as per the order in my computer here. So kindly, if you feel at this juncture would not wish to contribute to the matter that is before the floor of the House, please wait until the matter you're interested in contributing to be called upon, then you can press your gadget.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, actually, I really wanted to comment on the issue that was raised, but because I seem to be overtaken by events, I would only say that Senator Tabitha Keroche from Nakuru is concerned about her people and the suffering that they go through. It is important that this is taken into account, and we stand by her statement. Thank you so much.
Senator Cheptumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to comment on the statement by the Senator Nakuru. And Mr. Speaker, Senator Nakuru has raised a very, very important issue. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to urge the committee which will deal with this statement to extend, Mr. Speaker, their findings to other counties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in Baringo, for example, we've had situations similar to the ones in Nakuru. We have Lake Baringo, and we have Lake Bogoria. Mr. Speaker, up to today, we still have families who are not able to go back to their areas when the water levels went up in those lakes, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, this is a very emotive issue. And the issues of resettlement of people, Mr. Speaker, apart from those affected because of the high level of waters in the two lakes, Mr. Speaker, I think we need to go beyond even the issue of squatters. Mr. Speaker, areas of Baringo affected by the cattle rustling, Mr. Speaker, in Baringo South, in Baringo North, a lot of families, Mr. Speaker, are not in their homes. They moved away, Mr. Speaker, settling within neighbors, moving to other areas. They are displaced. And, Mr. Speaker, even the livelihood in terms of going to children going to schools are not able to go to school, Mr. Speaker, and a lot of them really suffer. Mr. Speaker, I think this House, apart from dealing with the statements by Honorable Senator Nakuru, Mr. Speaker, we have the responsibility as a House that deals with matters, counties, Mr. Speaker, to deal with this issue of Kenyan suffering for being displaced or arising from disputes that should be resettled, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to urge the committee handling this matter to go beyond Nakuru and also deal with matters in Baringo, where we have families who are displaced, who are not in their homes, and they are really living in very, very bad conditions, Mr. Speaker. And I want to propose that perhaps, Mr. Speaker, during the hearing of this petition or the statement, I will also be able to join the committee to also, argue the case for Baringo. And not only Baringo, Mr. Speaker, but the entire country. I want to thank my colleague for this statement, and I think it is going to help the Kenyan people who are suffering across the country.
Senator Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make a statement on behalf of Senator Eddie Akech, MP.
That has not been called. I thought you wanted to contribute to the two.
Yes, I had the two assignments, Honorable Speaker. I would like to support the Senator from Nakuru and reiterate our sentiments. It's a senator we work with very closely, and I can see she was working very hard for her people. So I support her in that cause. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chirange.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for this opportunity. I want to support Senator Tabitha Karanja, the Nakuru Senator, and congratulate for bringing this statement on the issue of resettlement of informal settlers in Molo, in Nakuru County. Mr. Speaker, sir, this issue of squatters and forest evictees and infrastructural evictees continues to affect this country a great deal. Mr. Speaker, in the last session, when the President appeared, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, he had committed that in the budget they will allocate 10 billion for compensation, especially through land historical injustice, Mr. Speaker. The Constitution is very clear that land historical injustices continues to be a biggest threat in terms of access to affordable housing, life of dignity, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I agree with that there are so many IDPs because of either post-election IDPs, any other form of IDPs. We have even the Mau evictees, Mr. Speaker, that continue to rear its ugly head. And I hope, Mr. Speaker, with this issue, the people of Mau either are compensated, they must be given alternative land, Mr. Speaker, to resettle. Even, Mr. Speaker, when you come to Nandi, we have similar problem. Mr. Speaker, when you go to places like Ipkurere, Ngatipkong, in Nandi Hills constituency and Tindred constituencies, Mr. Speaker, there are many forest effectees who are living outside the forest. And you know, Mr. Speaker, we are lucky as Nandi County because we have 3 forests, unlike any other county, Mr. Speaker. When you come to a place called Mgwen Sub-County, Mr. Speaker, a place in Kiptuya, squatters and effectees, Mr. Speaker, that matter even came before the Lands Committee, Mr. Speaker, in Mgwen Sub-County, in one of the Kiptuya areas, Mr. Speaker. There are many families that are yet to be settled, Mr. Speaker. Also, we have an issue of land historical injustices in Nandi Hills constituency, Mr. Speaker, where whenever people, by the way, drive or fly, and I know Senator Siengo might one day fly over there, Mr. Speaker, even yourself, you have overflown Nandi, and you think all is well, because when you fly over Nandi Hills constituency, you are wondering, these people are living in Canaan. We are not. Because most people who are supposed to be beneficiaries of those lands, the multinationals evicted them. And they are living like monkeys, Mr. Speaker. They don't have a dignity. When somebody dies there, Mr. Speaker, there is nowhere to bury them. In Nandi Hills Sub-County, Mr. Speaker, most people have been made squatters in their own country, Mr. Speaker. And when you see Lipton tea, we saw the scandal that Sex for Work in Kericho County, Mr. Speaker. That tea continues to be stained with the blood of many Kenyans. Because apparently, Mr. Speaker, in as much as somebody is enjoying tea somewhere in London or anywhere in Europe or in US, Mr. Speaker, that tea is tainted with blood. And the earlier we compensate many families that were evicted for multinational companies, Mr. Speaker, to set up their tea factories, Mr. Speaker, there will always be great travesty of justice, Mr. Speaker. So I want to support the resettlement of Molo settlers, Mau evictees, the evictees from Nandi, specifically Nandi Sub-County, Tindred Sub-County, and Mgwen Sub-County. Let them have the right. Let them feel nice, Mr. Speaker. We are not saying the government should give them chocolate and flowers, but we want them to appreciate the reason they are in the country, Mr. Speaker. And you know, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, when you are a man or you are an African, when you don't have land, you are like nobody. That's how we were brought up, Mr. Speaker. You are not a man when you don't have land, Mr. Speaker. I'm not saying when you don't have other things, but I'm saying when you are a man and you don't have land, it is an identity, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank you, and I hope the Committee on Lands, Settlement and Environment will be able to call us, Mr. Speaker. Let us enrich this discussion. Let the government, and I will be appealing, Mr. Speaker, I know it at budget policy statement, let the government at least commit, Mr. Speaker, 10 billion Kenya shillings for resettlement of any squatters, evictees of the forest, and infrastructural activities. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I stand to support.
What is the point of order, Senator Cheptumo?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Cherargei comes from Nandi, and I come from Baringo. Mr. Speaker, it worries me that, according to Cherargei, a man is defined by...
Senator Cheptumo, you ought to have rose on a point of order while the Senator...
Is he in order, Mr. Speaker, to...
Kindly take your seat. Kindly take your seat. Senator Abbas, proceed, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think I stand to support the Senator from Nekru, Honorable Tabitha. Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, this country, there are people who have not been settled for many years. There are people who have remained IDPs in their own country since independence. From the time of Immerul, before the independence, we had so many people who have been displaced by settlers, the white settlers. And up to today, they are landless and the IDPs in their own country. We have so many conflicts in all over the country. People run away from their homes. and they have nowhere to settle, and they all remain informal settlers. Therefore, I think it's the high time that this country must settle its own citizens, so that people want to live a decent life. They want their kids to go to school. They want to enjoy farming. They want to get all the privilege that other Kenyans have it. So I support the statement for Senator Tabitha. Thank you, Speaker.
Next, Senator Wakoli. Statement is deferred. Senator Chirange.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two
Senator, just before you proceed with your statement, the two statements by Senator Tabitha Keroche are committed to the relevant standing committees in the usual manner. Proceed, Senator.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I will be requesting your indulgence so that I read the two concurrent statements, so that if my colleagues want to put any comment across, it will be easier. So I hope, Mr. Speaker, you will allow me to read the two statements concurrently. Mr. Speaker, I request for statement on the ratification and implementation of appropriate scheme of service for clinical officers in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labour and Social Welfare on the ratification and use of appropriate scheme of service for clinical officers in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the statement, the committee should, 1, explain why the Ministries of Health and Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action have failed to ratify and implement the 2022 draft scheme of service for clinical officers in Kenya. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, state why the Ministry of Health has not concluded the collective bargaining agreement, CBA, negotiations with the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers and the implementation of return to work formula of October 2010. Mr. Speaker, sir, number 3, explain why the Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action has failed to issue a directive to county governments, 47 of them, that continue to engage clinical officers using the 2014 scheme of service, despite circular advising them to use the 2020 draft scheme of service across the counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, finally, state when the ministry will issue the correction circular to cover diploma clinical officers whose job descriptions are similar to those in the scheme of service at Job Group J and K, Mr. Speaker. So that's my first statement. Mr. Speaker, the second statement, request for statement on the state of affairs at Kenyatta International Convention Center. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on the state of affairs of Kenyatta International Convention Center, KICC. Mr. Speaker, in the statement, the committee should, 1, appraise the Senate on the state of KICC management, providing the corporation current financial position in terms of assets and liabilities. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, state reasons, if any, for the failure by Kenyatta International Conference Center management to ensure general cleanliness and availability of basic amenities at the facilities. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, disclose the terms of engagement in the contract between Kenyatta International Conference Center, KICC, and Lavington Security Limited, which is providing security services at the premises. Number 4, Mr. Speaker, sir, state the measures, if any, being taken by KICC to ensure security of tenants and staff. And Mr. Speaker, you are aware, most of the senators and parliamentarians have offices in KICC, in view of the current access by all manner of unauthorized persons into the building. And finally, Mr. Speaker, provide an updated list of all contracted service provider at the Kenyatta International Conference Center. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity.
Senator Mungatana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the statement by the Honorable Senator Cherargei on the question of the terms of engagement for clinical officers. Mr. Speaker, it is very sad that the Ministry of Health has not taken up issues to do with labor matters seriously. Mr. Speaker, we know that health is delegated, but the attitudes have also been delegated to the county governments. Mr. Speaker, clinical officers are treated with disdain, with a contempt in the county governments. And so when the Committee of Health is investigating this statement, Mr. Speaker, I would urge them to not only restrict themselves to Nandi County, but also to the rest of the counties in the Republic. Mr. Speaker, the clinical officers do more work even than the doctors. They are the first line of defense when it comes to taking, treating people who are sick in hospitals. We know that the doctors are fewer than the COs. The COs do a great more job than the doctors. Mr. Speaker, the public health sector in various counties have not treated them well. Mr. Speaker, the attitude of the public health has continued to deteriorate. As we speak now, Mr. Speaker, and I would urge the Health Committee to look into this as well. We have had a problem with interns who were employed under the universal health care employment. This was done sometimes in 2020, Mr. Speaker, and they were taken in because at the time the government was trying to boost its universal health reach, and also at the time they wanted to boost the war against COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, in Tana River County, for example, we had 24 universal health coverage interns who were also taken. They were given employment contracts for 1 year. And Mr. Speaker, when those contracts expired, they were simply told by the county government that there is no money to absorb them. Mr. Speaker, even those who had graduated, those who are qualified and employed under the universal health coverage arrangement contracts for 1 year, Mr. Speaker, even them, they were told to just go away. Mr. Speaker, the treatment of our health workers is simply unacceptable. So I'm asking that the Health Committee, as it sits down now to look at the issues that have been raised on the clinical officers, they should extend their tentacles also to look at issues involving universal health coverage, interns, and also the other who are employed. Mr. Speaker, the committee must look and see what is the sense of taking people, giving them employment numbers under the Ministry of Health. And because they have those employment personal numbers, they are not able to get any other jobs within the public service. The unfairness must be corrected. So I am urging the committee to treat that statement with the heaviness and the seriousness that it requires, so that our health workers, Mr. Speaker, can be given the dignity that they deserve. I support that statement by the Honorable Cherargei. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mogeni.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the statement by Senator Cherargei that touches on clinicians, on the health sector, not the one on KICC. I don't know about KICC. Mr. Speaker, you know, health, and Mr. Speaker, sir, you have been a governor, and you know the excitement that the people we represent, who reside in counties, had when devolution brought in health as a service that is devolved. And Mr. Speaker, we know that the largest population in this country lives in Mashinani. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, when Senator Cherargei brings an issue that touches on clinical officers, it excites me to rise up and make a comment and support, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is an adage that says that a healthy nation is a working nation. And a working nation, Mr. Speaker, is a wealthy nation, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, for us to have a working nation, we have to ensure that the health of our people, Mr. Speaker, is taken care of. And Mr. Speaker, if you pick statistics, we are staring at a crisis. Mr. Speaker, I serve in the Health Committee of the Senate. And last month, we got a report that in the month of January alone, 50 trained nurses, Mr. Speaker, left Kenyatta National Hospital for greener pastures in the United States of America. Simply because they are getting better pay on the other side of the Atlantic, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that should, catch the attention of SRC. Last year, you remember me speaking here, Mr. Speaker, that the Gazette notice that was released by SRC addressed increase of allowances, perks for people at the higher level, commissioners, ministers, our own president, cabinet secretaries, but there was nothing touching on the health care, the health sector of this country. And Mr. Speaker, that is not right. If this trend continues, Mr. Speaker, we will wake up one day and find that we have no clinicians, we have no nurses. And that will trigger a big crisis. So I really want to make a very, very passionate appeal to Salaries and Remuneration Commission, Mr. Speaker. I saw the supplementary budget, Mr. Speaker, that as a proposal to give national government an additional 92 billion on to meet the daily expenditure, not development. And I hope that can also address salaries of this cadre of Kenyans. So, Speaker, we know the president has his prerogative to appoint cabinet administrative secretaries, which is okay. There are only 23 at most. But the people that should get our attention is this class of people, clinicians. And you know, as we moved around, we moved around, Mr. Speaker, and at that time we knew we were getting this thing. You know, we had our Matiang'i on our side. We knew the state was on our side. And we went and assured Kenyans, once we take, you'll have 6,000 in your pockets. But you know, Mr. Speaker, we lost. Now you are, the Wood administration is in government. And you remember, you promised the people of Kenya that it will be bottom up. What is the message that you deliver to Kenyans? And the best way to implement that policy is to ensure that these Kenyans who are really at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of their earnings should be taken care of, Mr. Speaker. And they are our brothers, they are our sisters, they are our voters at the county level. We really need to champion their cause, Mr. Speaker. So I hope that the committee that will be tasked into looking into this matter, Mr. Speaker, will include summoning SRC to give us an update as to when they last reviewed salaries of clinicians, nurses, and other people who are in the healthcare sector, Mr. Speaker. So I support this statement, Mr. Speaker, and I plead with my good friend, Senator Cherargei, who is a very close friend of the head of state, to also ensure that he passes a message to His Excellency the President that he should not forget these are the hustlers. These are now the true hustlers. Please, before you take care of the cars, kindly take care of this card of Kenyans. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Tabitha Mutinda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the statement of Senator Cheralgai and to state that health is a devolved function. In Nairobi, we have over 165 hospitals that are county hospitals. Only about 4 are national. And the issues of the CHVs, the issue of the clinical officers is a very key issue in this country. And I rise to support because in this city that we represent, you find that it is a capital city where people will come from different counties seeking services from the city, from the capital city of our beautiful country. And with how the health issue has been tackled, whereby we have CHVs who working and their remuneration is at actually a very lower level, saddens us as the representatives of the people. I support the statement by saying that the committee should address this issue very urgently. I suggest that they should be able to summon the CS for health to be able to quicken and urgent the questions into by giving the answers on the quick way forward as far as the matters of any health sector in general is concerned. I extend the same yes to the different other counties of this country because as Senate we oversight counties. We need to enhance that devolution is still taking place by ensuring the services get to the people in the at the mashinani level, which is why we are here. And so I urge that the committee looks at it in very fast. At the same time, on the issue of the diploma for the clinic officers, as a student of pharmacy, when I started my tertiary level education, this is an issue that has been there for quite a long time, and I would urge that the Ministry of Education looks into this issue on a closure matter, because this is an issue that has been very much recurring, doesn't only affect the diploma in clinical officers, but diploma also in the pharmaceutical students. So it's something that the Ministry of Education, through the Committee of Education, should address this issue long term and make a closure on the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Beth Siangu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I raise also to support the statement by Senator Cheralgai. Actually, it is important that the terms of engagement for clinical officers are looked critically. Actually, looking at the health sector, as my colleague has stated, it is a devolved function. And it is unfair from time to time to have our health workers in the streets demonstrating, demanding the CPA, and every time they are disrupting health services in our facilities. Mr. Speaker, at the entry point of clinical officers in their training institutions, they are required to have high qualifications. And it is unfair when they are not fairly treated in terms of their remuneration. This is discouraging even our students in schools who feel that if they take any course on health matters, they will not be treated well, they will not get a proper payment package, and that's what is leading to many of our health workers going abroad to look for greener pastures. So I would request the Health Committee, where this statement is heading, that they would treat this matter with the seriousness it deserves, because we need dignity of our health workers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I think, as you're aware of this country, the health situation and conditions of the people of Kenya, it's a healthy nation, by the way. But of course, most of our health practitioners are not well taken care of. You see every day our doctors are on the streets. The RCOs, not registered clinical officers, are not even employed anywhere. They're hustling, the nurses are hustling. And the other day you are seeing in the papers that even doctors cannot go out of the country to look for a job outside the country. If we are not able to employ them, then I think they should be allowed to look for a job outside. Two, I think, as the Honorable Secretary said, the clinical officers are actually almost nowhere because we have the doctors there, we have the nurses, and then this I know KU has started a degree on clinical surgery and clinical something on that. I don't know what it was they call. So it is a high time that we can be able to come back to this country, and our health sector must be focused. If you look at all of the country, most of the rural hospitals, dispensaries, health centers don't even have enough doctors. There are even doctors, actually qualified doctors, MOs are not there. So the RCOs actually are the ones who are doing all the job. But their welfare is not well taken care of. I think generally the outlook of the health sector, since it was devolved, is actually that now they're getting some employment. But as it is, the registered clinical officers should be at least be considered and should be part of the structures. I beg to support, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Eddy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me opportunity to also put some thoughts around this very powerful statement by my friend, Senator Cherargei. I think just as my brother, Senator Omogeni has talked about the sense of health in this country, Mr. Speaker, if we don't get to solve the issue of health care, especially after devolution, it will be a very big problem. And at the heart of solving the issue of payment of these officers, Mr. Speaker, I think is an attempt to be able to try and professionalize healthcare in the counties. And I think that the one big part that sometimes is missing in this conversation, both at county government level and at national level, is basically the operationalization of the scheme of service, Mr. Speaker. You remember that in 2015, we had one of the most elaborate and most revised scheme of service for healthcare workers in the counties. And Mr. Speaker, up to date, this scheme of service has never been implemented. We are in 2023, but this scheme of service was something that in the plan, if you read it very well, could have brought about a number of changes in 2016, 2017, 2018, all the way to 2022. And this is critical because, Mr. Speaker, one of the challenges that the counties are facing is that you find excuses when it comes to paying healthcare workers because, one, there is no well-defined career structure which will attract, motivate, and sometimes also facilitate retention of these officers, to the extent that if you look at some of the recurring pending bills in counties, Mr. Speaker, the bulk of it becomes most of it these healthcare workers. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, there's actually need to provide for a clearly defined job description and specification for delineation of duties and responsibility for some of these medical officers, Mr. Speaker. Reason being, the structure of healthcare in the grassroots communities tend to vary from place to place. So if you think about a small dispensary in my village, Mr. Speaker, a healthcare worker sometimes is reduced to a simple Panadol giver. because there is no equipment, there is no capacity, and the issues they are dealing with sometimes need very serious attention, such that if there is no proper scheme of service that defines their JDs, Mr. Speaker, it becomes problematic. And as we know, money sometimes is a reward of work well done. So what ends up happening is that if they don't do the job they need to do, or sometimes they're not equipped to be able to perform a duty, then there's always an excuse for mischief by the county structures not to be able to pay them. And thirdly, Mr. Speaker, I think that there is a very critical element around standardization of recruitment and training and advancement for some of these healthcare workers. I know my sister, Senator Tabitha, talked very passionately about community health workers, which now in our system now they're called community health volunteers. Some of these people, Mr. Speaker, the process of recruiting them and even advancing their knowledge becomes such a problem. And again, it still goes to the idea of the scheme of service that's not implemented. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, I think that one of the biggest challenges in the counties is that when you look at the healthcare sector, Mr. Speaker, it is not taken as a serious career in the grassroots communities. Reason being, without pay, people give up and start volunteering even after qualifying so well, as my brother Omogeni talked about, serious nurses that come out of universities, then they go to the grassroots to seek for a job, they can't get it, then what ends up happening is that they want to volunteer. So there is need, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that there's appropriate career planning and succession in terms of management when you think about the entire healthcare infrastructure in the counties. And I think that this statement is a very good nexus to be able to appeal to the Minister of Health if she can be able to actually help counties to operationalize the scheme of service that we have had sitting on their desks since 2015, Mr. Speaker. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you so much.
Principal Secretary per se, because he is the accounting officer in the office of the Attorney General of Kenya. And therefore you cannot say that there is a community that doesn't have an accounting officer, because Principal Secretaries are accounting officers. And the Honorable Shadrach Mose, not representing the Abagusi community, but as a man who has been vetted, and the committee and many members who have spoken ahead of me and also myself agree, merits to serve as an accounting officer in the office of the Attorney General. He warrants that position, Honorable Speaker, and having served with him in the last parliament, in the 12th parliament, Honorable Speaker, I can confirm to the country that the Honorable Shadrach Mose is not just a humble servant of the people, but a very diligent worker. Those who worked with him in the House Business Committee in the last assembly can bear me witness on that. Those who served in the Transport and Infrastructure Committee in the last parliament can also bear witness. And I also happened to work with the Honorable Mose as he ran for his parliamentary seat on a UDA ticket. And as we formed the UDA, we worked very closely with the Honorable Shadrach Mose. And he's not a man you can intimidate. He withstood a lot of intimidation and coercion by those who believed that they had the state, they had what they call the deep state in the system, and those who believed they had all the powers to even indicate to people in parts of Nyanza, where he comes from, where they had to go to politically. And the Honorable Shadrach Mose stood firm to ensure that he stood for what he believed for. But I want to encourage him as he settles down in the state law office to ensure that, as he did promise during his vetting, he will professionalize the state law office. We must not again see many cases being lost by government in court, and we must work with him and support him as he sought during his vetting to enhance the budget for the state law office to ensure that they have good professionals, and they can retain the best brains in the country. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to support.
Thank you very much, Majority Leader. The Honorable Lilian Gogo, Member for Rangwe.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. I also rise to support matters that concern a colleague. The Honorable Shadrach is not only a colleague but an astute lawyer, and is a Kenyan of good standing and well-meaning to the people of Kenya. And I want to thank the Jailer Committee for taking its time to vet this particular candidate for this good office. And Honorable Speaker, there are a class of people out there who think that members of parliament, people in the National Assembly or Senate, are not well read. But from what has been presented here, in the name of Shadrach Mose, who is being proposed and vetted for the position of the Solicitor General, Madam Speaker, if you could protect me from loud discussions because I'm disrupted.
Honorable members,
yes.
Order, honorable members. I request that you consult in lower tone so that the honorable member for Rangwe can be heard.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. There are some people who think once they have spoken, then a question should be put. But here I am supporting the nomination of this particular candidate, Honorable Speaker, and it is a good show that Parliament has content, Parliament has people who can also be charged with other national responsibilities. And I thank the committee for doing a good job, and I support the proposal that Honorable Shadrach Mose be the Solicitor General. I thank you.
What is out of order? The Honorable Kagombe, what is out of order?
Madam Speaker, I rise on standing order number 95-1, and I have listened to the debate about the appointment of the Solicitor General in this House. And Madam Speaker, I am convinced that what has been put and the mood of the House is that you put the question because the debate has been exhaustively discussed, and I therefore request, Madam Speaker, that you put the question and we call the move of the debate, put the question, and we finish this debate. Put the question, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Sorry, the mover to be called upon to reply.
Okay, order, honorable members. I would like first of all to find out whether it is the mood of the House that I put the question. So, honorable members, is it the mood of the House that I put the question? Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many of the other opinion say nay? Honorable members, the ayes have it. Honorable members, before I do that, honorable members, before I put the question, then I'm obliged to give an opportunity to the mover to reply.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to reply. Thank you.
Honorable members, then I therefore put the question that taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs in its report on the vetting of a nominee for the appointment as the Solicitor General of the Republic of Kenya, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, March 1st, 2023, and pursuant to provisions of Section 9 of the Office of the Attorney General's Act 2012 and Section 8 of the Public Appointment Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, this House approves the appointment of the Honorable Shadrach John Mose as the Solicitor General of the Republic of Kenya. Honorable members, will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the opposite opinion say nay? The ayes have it. The member for Turkana County. You may now move the adjournment motion. You may proceed, member for Turkana.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to table this motion of adjournment of the House under Standing Order 33 subsection 1 to discuss rising insecurity cases in the North Rift counties. Madam Speaker, I had read the motion notice, and all I want to do now is to mention a few things and then invite my colleagues to elaborate on the same debate. Madam Speaker, it cannot be business as usual. We cannot afford to sit here comfortably when some other parts of Kenya are not really living as they are required to be. Madam Speaker, as we sit here, some families have been displaced from their ancestral land, Madam Speaker, due to banditry. Madam Speaker, as we speak, some schools have been burnt down and Kenyan children are not going to school because the bandits burnt down their schools, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as we sit here, some roads that are linking Kenya to international businesses are not passable. For instance, the A1 road that links Kenya to South Sudan is impassable as we speak. Many people have lost lives and we've lost property. Madam Speaker, as we sit here, many families in Turkana region, and I believe in the other regions that I mentioned, have been rendered poor because they have lost their livestock to this banditry menace. And you know, in those regions, livestock is the main livelihood. Madam Speaker, we've lost a lot of property to the banditry menace. We've lost schools, we've lost facilities like hospitals, they have been burnt down. So it is not, I've always said it is no longer cattle rustling as people would say. Madam Speaker, the conflict in the North Rift has become a land issue. It's no longer cattle rustling. Because, Madam Speaker, as you can observe, when these people are raided and killed, the perpetrators of these heinous acts move to settle in those places, meaning their main aim is to chase away these people from their ancestral land in quest for enlarging their territories. Madam Speaker, we've lost officials, government officials, to this menace. You remember the former president was giving a directive after Kenya lost over 20 GSU officers in Kapedo. And the perpetrators would just go on and say, sorry, Mr. President, we thought they were Turkanas. And that was on record. Madam Speaker, and the bandits could go ahead and don on those uniforms, take away those guns, and kill more Kenyans using our own ammunitions. Madam Speaker, there are instances where when you go to the scene of crime or the war scene, you get that the cartridges of war, some of them are marked with our own made in Kenya labels, meaning these bandits are accessing ammunitions from the government factories, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, today I want to thank the President of the Republic of Kenya as the head of the defense forces of this country. He had ordered that the defense forces to be deployed in these areas that have recorded high numbers of attacks. Madam Speaker, as we speak, although we don't have information, clean information, because I know this is August House, we are not supposed to share rumors here, but we can share what we hear out there. Word has it that some leaders in this House are in record financing this menace, Madam Speaker. And they have even gone ahead to contribute money to compromise the commanders of the KDF forces so that the KDF officers cannot carry out their duties as they have been directed by the Commander-in-Chief. Madam Speaker, as we speak, there is an operation going on in those regions, but the attacks and raids are still going on, Madam Speaker. As we speak, there are students who are not going to school. Their schools have been burnt down, yet the operation is still ongoing, Madam Speaker. So we are not understanding where are these KDF camps and where are the bandits doing these operations from. Madam Speaker, there are these video clips doing rounds in social media of the drone of the KDF forces. They have seen where these bandits are hiding from. They have seen where they are cooking from. They are having their breakfast, even attempting to shoot the drones, and nothing has been done, Madam Speaker. We just want to know, who is this person that is above the president that these bandits really depend upon, Madam Speaker? We have seen leaders making insightful statements and nothing has been done about them. Because when a leader stands up and threatens the government that if government brings, anarchy, we will serve them anarchy in huge doses, and the government has done nothing about it. Madam Speaker, the financials of banditry in the north are in this House. They are sitting pretty, and the government is just seated looking at them. Madam Speaker, we just want the government to smell the coffee. It is no longer business as usual. It has gone to the level of terrorism, Madam Speaker.
What is out of order? Honorable Ambassador Benjamin Langat, member for Anapoi.
Madam Speaker,
Ainamoi.
Madam Speaker, while I did not want to interrupt the member, but Madam Speaker, this House is entitled to factual information, and casting aspersions on members of this House and members of defense forces, Mr. Speaker, is completely out of order. Madam Speaker, I heard the honorable member saying some defense forces members have been compromised. I've also heard her say some members of this House are financing the banditry, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, can she name the members, substantiate the information she's giving to this House? Otherwise, Madam Speaker, this motion is not coming the right way, Madam Speaker.
Member for Turkana, what is your comment about the matter that has been raised by the member for Ainamoi?
Madam Speaker, the honorable member shocks me. You know, he's not affected. He's speaking from his comfort zone. He has never lost a relative to this menace. He has never lost a property to this menace. So he's just commenting from his comfort zone. Honorable member, you don't need rocket science to understand that the sponsors of banditry are in this House. Honorable Speaker, recently, the bandits were airlifted.
Order, member for Turkana.
Honorable Speaker, recently there is a video.
Member for Turkana, order. There is a matter that has been raised by the member for Ainamoi, the Honorable Benjamin Langat, concerning two allegations that you have made. One, that members of the defense forces have been compromised, and two, that some members of this House are financing banditry attacks. And these are very strong allegations, and I would like to give you an opportunity. Would you like, you can make a decision to withdraw and proceed, or I can give you an opportunity to substantiate what you have said.
I will not withdraw.
Further, Honorable Member for Turkana, I would like to give you guidance on a standing order, based on standing order number 87, contents of speeches, and I'll go to 87.4. No member shall impute improper motive on any other member or to a senator except upon a specific substantive motion of which at least 3 days notice has been given, calling in question the conduct of that member or that senator. So I would like to give you an opportunity to, you can make a decision to withdraw, or if you want to continue, we can give you an opportunity to table the names.
Madam Speaker, someone is keeping on switching me from one mic to another. What is happening?
The mic that you had has a problem, so kindly move to the mic on your left.
I was moved here again. Msilete banditry hata hapo. Madam Speaker, you see, I'm being switched from one mic to another. What is happening?
Honorable Member for Turkana, you have the floor and you have the mic.
Yeah,
please proceed.
Please, and protect me so that no one switches me to the other mic again. Madam Speaker, you've read to me some standing order about facts in this house. Madam Speaker, whatever is happening in the social media and in our mainstream media, stared at by all Kenyans, can be said to be facts. When you have an honorable member of this house owning a chopper, airlifting bandits who have a case in court concerning the same, what do you want me to say about the same, Madam Speaker? Then secondly, about the compromise of the defense forces, Madam Speaker.
I would like to exhaust the initial point of order by the member for Enamoi.
Yes, Madam Speaker, and please protect me from honorable members like Wanjala, who is sitting in the inside Kenya, who doesn't know what we are going through in the North Rift. Please, Honorable Wanjala, stop bullying me. I have to make my points.
You know, honorable member for Turkana, you have a very important motion that you are supposed to prosecute. And remember that you rose on the floor of the House this afternoon and you got the requisite quorum of 20 members. And you have a very important business that you need to do. And you have the protection that you need, and I can assure you that I did not notice the shouting that you're talking about by the Honorable Wanjala. It wasn't loud enough to distract what you're saying. I would like to give you an opportunity, based on that standing order number 87, to make a decision on what you would like to do. Would you like to withdraw and proceed with your motion, or you would like me to give you an opportunity to substantiate what you have just said? And remember that you have still made further additional allegations.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I'm a Christian. There is information with our Directorate of Criminal Investigations about these matters. And we cannot be gagged from saying what we know, Madam Speaker. And if at all anyone thinks I'm speaking lies, Madam Speaker, why then would you think a primitive community like mine, where I come from, Turkana, that is a pastoralist community, they are called primitive in quotes, or Pokots or Marakwets, or how can they sustain a war with a government without sponsorship, Madam Speaker? What do you want us to understand with that? And there are people, whenever these communities are brought to book, who come right away into the media to protect them, to airlift them. Madam Speaker, Kainuk, there are OBs in our police stations in Kainuk. There are OB occurrences in those books where some vehicles coming from our nearby counties carrying ammunitions to be supplied to those krals who stay in Turkana County at the moment. And you don't want us to say all that. Madam Speaker, I will not withdraw that statement. And about the compromise of the KDF, Madam Speaker, even when our KDF were working on Al-Shabaab, let me substantiate the last one.
Honorable, you can take your seat First of all, you have withdrawn, and I take notice of that so that you can continue, you can proceed with your motion. You have withdrawn. I would also like to give you guidance based on the same standing order number 87-6. Except as a speaker may otherwise allow, it shall be out of order for a member to refer to an extract from print or electronic media as an authority in a member's speech. And I would like to encourage you to proceed. You are doing very well. Please proceed and move your motion. Okay, Madam Speaker, I took notice that the Honorable Member for Turkana withdrew. Madam Speaker. Okay, Madam Speaker, I stand guided by the Honorable Speaker. Madam Speaker, I choose to continue tabling my motion. Honorable Member for Turkana. Member for Turkana. I would like to give you an opportunity to withdraw and proceed. I would like to give you an opportunity.
Madam Speaker, if the word withdrawal will make me table my motion, I withdraw and I'm going on tabling my motion, Madam Speaker.
You may proceed.
Madam Speaker, the main reason of adjournment motion is to stir emotives and emotions within this house that really we are sitting pretty here when things are going wrong on the ground. Madam Speaker, we cannot sit here. Some constituencies, their children are going to school. Ours are not going to school. Simply because their schools were burnt down, the teachers cannot be posted there because there is some community that has trained terrorists who cannot allow teachers to carry out their duties, Madam Speaker. So it will be an injustice if we are told not to put things as they are, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as we sit here, there are people in Lomelo, that is Kapedo na Peyton Ward in Turkana East, who have no homes because in the 2 nights before, they were burnt down, Madam Speaker. And you just want us to sit here tabling motions that are not of any importance to this country, Madam Speaker. When lives of Kenyans are endangered as we sit here, the people we represent have no homes. As all of us will be under a roof tonight, there are people who are sitting under trees, Madam Speaker, waiting for their death because they are surrounded by bandits in Lomelo. That is Kapedo na Peyton Ward in Turkana East, Madam Speaker. As we sit here, Madam Speaker, we will travel safe to our houses, then come back next week to this house. There are people who cannot access their homes because those roads are impassable due to this banditry menace, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think the highest intervention is the one that has been done by the President, who is the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces of this country. He has deployed defense forces to those areas. But, Madam Speaker, surprisingly, the raids are still going on. So what do you want us to deduce from that? The defense forces are on ground, but raids are still happening. Vehicles are not passing the A1 road. Children are not going to school. Schools keep on being burnt. Homes are being burnt. Some people are burnt alive in their houses, Madam Speaker, in Kapedo Ward. And you say this is a country we all belong to, Madam Speaker. It is so unfair, Madam Speaker. And as we even face the internal aggression, Madam Speaker, we still lose lives to the external boundaries. We are still being raided by people from South Sudan. We are still being raided by people from Ethiopia, by people from Uganda. And we belong to this country, Madam Speaker. During this freedom era, Madam Speaker, it is so unfortunate. Madam Speaker, some of us have been sent here to represent our people. And it is unfortunate when we take up to the floor to explain what they go through on their daily lives. Then people take it as a joke. It is so unfortunate. Madam Speaker, I therefore call this House to give a consideration to this motion. Discuss, try to put your feet into our shoes. Can you put your feet into our shoes? You are not sure of being elected next time because our numbers are reducing daily. We are losing electorates every day, Madam Speaker. Even registration of persons to get the IDs are frustrated efforts in our county, Madam Speaker. In which country are we, Madam Speaker? I'm not secure. I don't know if I will be elected by the numbers that elected me in the last elections, because we are losing huge numbers. I'll give you another 2 minutes so that you may finalize. Okay, even before I finalize, Madam Speaker, because I'm even becoming a bit emotional. You know, I'm a victim of banditry, Madam Speaker. I'm one woman who was wedded traditionally in Turkana, and you know what it means to be wedded traditionally. Herds of cattle that were given to my kinsmen, Madam Speaker, not even a single one can be traced in our yards. It went to West Pokot, Madam Speaker. Yeah? It went to West Pokot County, Madam Speaker. So we are, if people of our stature are victims, so you can imagine that Turkana person there, down there. Madam Speaker, I want to donate this time to honorable members herein to support this motion. And because I have all my kinsmen in here, let me donate this motion to nearby counties first as we go. You are out of order, member for member for Turkana. There is time for them to speak. So you first of all, the rules do not allow you to do that, but I want to assure you that they'll have their time so that they can contribute to this motion. Honorable members, I would like to give this to the Honorable Mark Nyamita, member for Uriri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I want to say I don't come from a pastoral community. I know the mover of this motion is saying that you donate it to your neighbors first. But we have heard you, we hear your emotions. And I don't know how it feels when the dowry that was paid for you is now not there, it's been taken. But Madam Speaker, I just want to urge, I know there's a crisis. Yesterday I was watching the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, who's leading the operations in this area. And his sentiments sort of tie to what my colleague member for Turkana is talking about, that this thing has actually moved from cattle rustling to terrorism. And I just want to urge the government that we cannot continue to sit pretty when lives are being lost, especially lives. But I also want to urge our people in the pastoral community to slightly elevate the value of life, human life over cattle. In fact, I am a bit disappointed. The honorable member was proceeding very well, but to say that she's more worried about her votes, the number of votes that she got, whether she's going to get them, is really trying to belittle the issue at hand. The situation in Turkana, other than the drought that is ravaging the country, I was watching on TV yesterday, Madam Speaker, leave alone livestock, people are dying. When you have children, I was reading even in a newspaper today that someone has chased away students from school and occupied it with his 2 wives. It is a very, very sad sort of a situation. And I actually think the government needs to give it a bit more attention. One of the things is that in that community, which is what I'm continuing to urge, even in my county, Madam Speaker, one of my neighbors, in fact, one of my colleagues, one time, who is the highest person who was on record having married with the most number of cattle. He carried almost about 500 head of cattle to just marry a lady in our village. In fact, it was even trouble. I just wanted to adopt, even in my community, to marry you must take cattle. But maybe we adopt other things. We can use money. We can use other means of payment. So that the moment we detach value from the cattle and give more value to human life, I think that is, because what is a dispute? Someone's cattle has been taken, someone's cows have been taken, it's just basically about animals. And that is what is leading to the loss of life. So I think that is one thing that we need to do. But I just want to urge the government that more efforts. This country at large, not only the pastoral community, is facing a very serious crisis in the near future, emanating from this drought that we are currently experiencing. These guys are going to be having double tragedy. And I feel you,
And I want to urge my colleagues, if there is anything that we can be able to do, if they can take the whole of the military to that particular area to wipe out all those people. And it would be very sad if the allegations that my colleague is talking about are serious, that there could be someone elected and is sitting in this house or the Senate, the house that is supposed to be protecting Kenyans, the house of last resort for many people out there, that there would be someone in this particular house who is using his own money to continue funding. And I just want to urge my sister that as you substantiate, and if you have any evidence, I urge that the next time when you're talking on the floor of the House, you come with that evidence on this floor of the House so that we deal with facts that are here. Or other than reporting it to the police, it would be very sad, so that we call out that particular member or members if they are sitting with us here as we are debating serious issues of national importance, whereas at the back end they are funding the killing of other people and messing of other people's livelihoods. It would be extremely sad, especially now that this is a house that Kenyans actually look up to. I want to urge the government, if it is indeed true that we are to believe what the Cabinet Secretary spoke about, that this thing has moved to terrorism, then we need to upgrade the response from cattle rustling, and the force that has been deployed in that particular region should match a force that is now combating terrorism in this country. So that we deal with it. The President spoke about it. It's almost 2 weeks. It's almost going to a month. And people are still crying. In fact, the cries are even louder. Can they increase a force that now can deal with the issues in that particular area? And I feel you, my sister, and I just want to urge my colleague that my colleagues in this house, that let's all forget about our areas for once and consider our sisters and our people coming from the cattle rustling areas, and let's see what can be done. Can the government begin to also look at other economic activities that can, the communities in those areas can be involved in, so that we don't end up with people killing each other? And this is a thing that has been on almost from the time of independence. And I just want to say I am here to support you. If there's anything that we can do, let us join our sister. And I move to support that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Member for Riri. The Honorable Florence Gematia, the women member for Baringo County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I want to thank my sister, Honorable Cecilia, for the good work and this motion that is before us in the floor of the House. I must say that I am with you 100%, and this is something that we members from the affected regions have been crying loud. And I also want to thank the floor and the House in general for taking time and considering this as a support for us in the Kerio Valley region. Madam Speaker, I must say from the onset that I come from Baringo. I consider Baringo as one of the manufacturers of bandits. As a member of Baringo County, I speak here with authority that that is where most of this problem has been emanating from. We have one constituency in my county, Madam Speaker, that has been the only denominator of bandits. It's called Tiati. And I'm not sorry to say that because it's true. When I was a member, when I was doing my campaigns, and I have been all through as a member of parliament now, I have seen this community, through their leaders, not taking any keen interest in stopping this behavior. Madam Speaker, when terrorism was associated with Somaliland and Somalis and the Islam, they stood firm and they condemned it. When Mongiki were terrorizing everyone in this country, the Kikuyu community stood firm and said it is enough because it was associated with them. Today, there is a community called the Pokots who have vehemently refused to condemn this menace. They are the ones who are terrorizing everyone. Every neighbor who is within Pokot is crying. The Samburis are crying. Laikipia is crying. Turkanas are crying. The Tugans, Elgeyo Marakwet, just because you didn't choose to be a neighbor over Pokot. I want to speak with authority that I'm speaking for the next generation. This is a menace that we must do it and deal with it today. I am also speaking as a member of parliament and a member of this government. I voted for the Kenya Kwanza government. And every time I see myself standing on the floor defending, I also feel that I did and participated in creating a government that should solve the problem that is at hand. One of the problems in Baringo County today, children are not able to go to school. I thank the president for ordering the KDFs and other military and security agencies to deal with these bandits. But I want to support my sister that it is not true. Whatever thing is happening is something that all of us are actually wondering. As much as we are using the coffers money, and members of parliament, please, this is the money that is being spent from the people of Kenya, and it must show us results. We cannot at any moment be watching when schools are not opening. I have more than 7 schools that was closed when bandits raided schools. On CS Kindiki yesterday, before the television, gave a whole horror that there's one school called Ngelecha Primary School in Baringo South, that bandits went, raided the school. This bandit has several wives. Wife number 1 is in class 8. Class 7 and class 6 is putting all these children. The school compound is becoming his cow bomber. This is Kenya. I am a victim of bandits. And every time I speak from, it is really painful. I have lost relatives. I am here to condemn this menace with all power that can be given to me, that this is the only time we can stand up as members of parliament and say no. It is true. Some of us are actually the perpetrators and the beneficiaries of this menace, and they are sitting in this floor of the house. I might not substantiate now, but every time you want this, I will give you. And I know. And I don't speak from, I speak from the point of information and knowledge. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Jared Okello, member for Nyando.
I thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity, and I align myself with the quest by the Turkana representative raising this pertinent issue. Honorable Speaker, banditry is not a new phenomenon in this country. It began many years ago. It has refused to dissipate, and the government seems to be doing just lip service. I'm saying lip service because when there was something akin to a prayer in Nakuru, the leaders did implore upon the administration to send the military to these bandit-prone areas. Madam Speaker, the following day, even without the approval of this House, we saw tankers getting into Turkana and Samburu areas. That was a mere PR exercise, Honorable Speaker. Because I want to believe when people who are indoctrinated into banditry see real intervention by the military, they would run to Sudan. They would run to Somalia. They will not stage additional protests and carry out cattle rustling within this country. And therefore, I say that what we saw was a mere PR exercise, Madam Speaker. Now, as our government is busy carrying out PR exercises, people are losing lives. And now this problem has actually metamorphosed into something else, akin to cultish movement. Yesterday, a video went viral, even though, Madam Speaker, you have read something around it, but there was something that young people and young girls are having their private parts being chopped off, in addition to what they have been subjected to, Madam Speaker. It is said insecurity anywhere within our territorial boundaries is insecurity everywhere, the epicenter and the periphery alike. And therefore, we cannot sit pretty in this house, listening to lamentations by people from the north, every time about insecurity. If we have a government that has failed to tame a bandit, just a bandit, this is a government that should be home yesterday. So that a proactive government, responsive to the plight of the people, can be put into office, Madam Speaker. So when our colleagues from Turkana speak, when our colleagues from Baringo speak, Samburu speak, it is upon all of us to rally behind them. Because what if they defeat government in areas where they live? They will be in Nyando constituency tomorrow. And therefore, this is not a problem that we can leave in the hands of those who are suffering. Our country must be rallied behind this cause, universally. And we have to tackle it on land, air, and sea, if possible, so that these bandits can be subjected to justice. Madam Speaker, I know that even though the military carried out a PR stunt, immediately they landed in those areas. Some of the machines they are using, some of the trucks that they are using are so rickety that they only landed and became demobilized on the same day. One time, the Interior Cabinet Secretary, a man that we all have lots of respect for, was addressing a public baraza in a place, and bandits were actually burning people's houses less than a kilometer away. That is the minister in charge of security. If I was the minister, I can tell you nothing like that can ever happen. That I'm addressing a public baraza and you are burning homes. I will personally go in and eradicate you and neutralize all of them. And therefore, I'm challenging these people. This is not a laughing matter, Madam Speaker. Let us all rally behind, as leadership of this House, behind our people, so that this can be resolved once and for all. And if this government has failed the way they have, can they step aside so that Azimio gets into office and correct all the wrongs that have been perpetuated for way too long? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Timothy Toroi Teach, member for Marakwet West.
Madam Speaker, I wish to be protected from Honorable Wanjala. Madam Speaker, thank you for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important motion. And I want to thank my sister for bringing this very important motion before the floor of this House. Madam Speaker, governments are elected into office to protect property and the lives of its people. Madam Speaker, it is unfortunate that since independence, the people of Kerio Valley, the people of conflict-prone zones, have been neglected by successive regimes in this country. Madam Speaker, as we speak, the entire Kerio Valley, the entire conflict-prone areas is under the command of militia. Madam Speaker, the area of Tiati, Turkana, part of Marakwet, Samburu, Laikipia, they are living in medieval times. Those are areas that they have no infrastructure, there are no roads, there are no schools, there are no hospitals, they are living in the dark ages. Madam Speaker, military intervention is good, but that is a short-term measure. In fact, in my opinion, we need deliberate civilization in that area. Madam Speaker, that is an area that still lives in a pre-colonial era in this country. Madam Speaker, we laud the recent intervention by the President. But again, we need a proper military intervention as envisaged under Article 241(3) of the Constitution. Madam Speaker, the recent intervention by KDF, we are being told that the KDF is under the command of the police. In my opinion, that is very unfortunate. We need a proper military intervention as was seen in the Sabot Land Defense Force. Madam Speaker, KDF alone managed to wipe out the SLDF by wiping out Matakwe and the team. So, Madam Speaker, it is not a very easy thing that we think we can be able to just solve through military intervention. Madam Speaker, this government should form a serious commission of inquiry to inquire into the problem that is facing the people of Kerio Valley and the entire conflict zones. Because the problem is historical, the problem is no longer about banditry and cattle rustling, it is becoming or mutating to expansionism. And that is the biggest problem that we have as we speak. So, Madam Speaker, secondly, I agree with my colleague, Oshimwe Chematia from Baringo, that these people need to be classified as terrorists. These are not bandits. The cabinet or the president should convene a National Security Council meeting and have the bandits be declared as terrorists and be dealt as such in accordance with the laws of this country. So, Madam Speaker, in short, in as much as we have the KDF who have gone to that region to solve the conflict, we need a long-term solution in Kerio Valley. Madam Speaker, the reason why a certain community is blamed for initiating this problem is because of exposure. They need to be exposed, and that area needs to be developed in its totality because it has been left out by the government for quite a long period of time. So, Madam Speaker, we need a commission of inquiry to properly investigate the matters affecting the people in Kerio Valley. Secondly, we need proper disarmament. At what age, can you imagine people wielding guns? And we have legislation in this country protecting our people from being killed. Madam Speaker, I beg to support this motion in totality, and we pray that we shall get, in the fullness of time, we shall get a lasting solution in Kerio Valley. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Fatuma Mohammed, member for Migori County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity you've given me to contribute to this. First, I want to start by congratulating my sister and feeling the pain that you feel. For you to have taken, even for you to bring this motion here is already a risk for her. And I'm praying for you that may Allah protect you, that they don't get to you. They are watching you now, saying this one is interfering with our business. And I'm very sure, as a woman, you cannot come here and yell what you know it is not true. For sure, there must be some truth in what she has said about whoever is financing this. I may not be aware who that person is, but I beg that we do listen to her. And if there is something that this government can do, which I believe they have opportunity to do something, consider her statement, protect her, and get the truth. This is a woman speaking. This is a mother speaking. Honestly, it is painful, and she is a daughter. This country, I was born many years back, but I remember when Moi was the president, there were some people who were called shifters. Moi made an order. Within 40 minutes, there's no human being that was left called a shifter. What government are we having today? The Pokot population is merely 621,000. You can interview each one of them and know who a bandit is. Either the government is not concerned or the government is not serious about this. And if the government cannot take it up to them, then we as the women, as the wives, as the daughters, as the mothers, as the people who get affected most, we will take to the streets and we will find a solution to this, because the government is taking this for granted. This is a major issue. This is seriously a major issue. When my sister talked to you about her votes, she didn't mean that she wants them to vote her back. She merely meant that the population that voted for her, she is losing a big population. That is exactly what she meant. She is here to talk on behalf of the people who voted her. She is talking as a mother of this country, so am I. Can this government tell us they are not able to take care of their own people who are fighting within? And the extras who are outside there, the Al-Shabaab, all those people who are terrorists, are watching and saying, what a country we are, that our own war amongst us, we cannot handle. And they're saying, this is a weak country, and we are becoming a target. We are showing that we are not able to take care of our people. And so the bad people outside are saying, we are soon going for this country. And within a minute, I saw a joke sometimes from Uganda that person can take this country within 3 minutes. And I'm seeing this country, within a second, the bad people can take us. If we cannot take care of such a small community, it doesn't affect me in Migori County. I sleep with my doors open. We don't do this kind of things. The only thing that worries me is my fish, if at all it will cross to Uganda. But I'm feeling what she is feeling. There is something that the country can do about this. I was born a small girl. I saw it happening. I am growing old. I have gray hair, and I'm still seeing this happening. Clearly, this has nothing to do with cattle rustling. And if the country is serious, if the leadership of this country is serious, they will get the root problem. We know that they've been marginalized for long. We know that education, they're still behind. We know that they're not taken care of. I don't know their voting pattern if it has anything to do with this. But I believe by the end of the day, these people are Kenyans. These people pay taxes. These people deserve to be given security just as people of Migori are enjoying their security. Please, the government, listen to the women, listen to this woman and feel her pain. And please do something about this community. Not only for the women, even the men are losing their daughters, they're losing their wives. And the future generation is at stake. I beg that if there's anything, even if it means donating our salaries, if the country doesn't have money, take our salaries and do something to help the people who are suffering. It pains me as a woman. It pains me as a mother. It pains me as a taxpayer. And I'm speaking to the government. Do something, or we find a way as women, and we will do something. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Phyllis Barto, member for Moiben constituency.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise to join my colleagues in the debate on the issue of banditry in Turkana. I support my colleague, county women representative from Turkana, for this very emotive issue. Madam Speaker, the Constitution, Chapter 14, Article 238, talks about national security. It is the duty of government to provide and protect its people internally and from external threats. But, Madam Speaker, the issue of insecurity in the regions mentioned, Turkana, Samburu, Laikipia, Baringo, and Elgeyo Marakwet, become a perennial problem. Until now, we don't understand when this problem is going to be put to rest. I listened to the county women rep Turkana presenting this issue very emotionally, and some of our colleagues were trying to make fun and even telling her not to mention what he was saying. A member of parliament represents people, represents a constituency, a county. So when she brings an issue to the floor of parliament, she knows where the shoe pinches. She has talked about schools being closed in our constituency. At this time in Kenya, we are implementing the KBC curriculum. We have the junior secondary schools. Every part of Kenya is busy trying to see that we get it right. When we close schools in some other parts of Kenya, what are we trying to say? Where is what will happen to those children in those particular regions? Who will fight for them? They are part of Kenya. Something has to be done. She has talked about police officers. She has mentioned over 50 of them who have lost their lives. These are the people who are supposed to be giving protection. When those ones who are supposed to be protecting the people are under threat, who will fight for the people in these regions? Madam Speaker, I happen to be, as a neighbor of this county, Madam Speaker, Moiben borders, or is a neighbor of Elgeyo Marakwet and Trans Nzoia and Baringo and Turkana and Samburu. In 2007, Madam Speaker, during the post-election violence, I happened to be in that region. That was in Uasin Gishu. I was in South Africa one time when the issue of war broke, the issue of Kwere Kwere, where Africans were fighting their fellow Africans from other African countries. And Madam Speaker, it is not something very nice. War is bad. And especially when a woman speaks about war, it is very painful. When war breaks, it affects mothers, it affects children. Something has to be done. We need to address this issue in totality. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Emathe, member for Turkana Central. I want to take that again. Emathe, the Honorable Emathe, member for Turkana. Joseph Emathe, member for Turkana Central.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I want to thank you so much for this opportunity and also to thank my women rep for Turkana County. And this is very, very handy at a discussion or a debate that has come at the right time. And a time has come, Madam Speaker, for us to listen to each other as a country. A time has come when we must call a spade a spade. And Madam Speaker, when members here were requesting or asking for a member to substantiate a statement or a comment that one was making, to me, it's like they are living in our own world. They are not in Kenya. Madam Speaker, the history of cattle rustling, the history of cattle theft, the history of all that is happening in the North Rift has been documented. It is in record. Kenyans all over are aware that Kerio Valley, Suguta Valley is a place you can enter, but you may not come out alive. This is where bandits stay. They have turned themselves into terrorists, and they have turned themselves into another IBC, trying to do some They have turned themselves into another IBC, trying to do some forceful delineation of boundaries by themselves. Madam Speaker, I once worked...
Honorable Emathe, There is a small problem with the mic.
Okay.
Nobody is interfering with what you're saying, so you may proceed.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I once worked in Kuria East, where Honorable Kitayama comes from. And I took a county commissioner of that place to Turkana. That man became a regional commissioner later, and I took that man together with the district peace committee all the way from Kuria East, and we took the route that took us to Tot, we crossed to Koloa, we went to Tiati, we slept in Kapedo, and we went to Lomelo, Madam Speaker. The horrible situation in Lomelo made the county commissioner to cry, Madam Speaker, because the chief in that place, first of all, had missed to go for his salary for 3 months. Number two, the food he was eating is something that cannot be eaten by anybody, an employee of this country. Everyone cried. We left the place with hearts broken, and that was in 2010. Madam Speaker, we went to Kainuk. We held a meeting there with the Peace Committee. I will need time, Madam Speaker, to exhaust what I have, because this is a moment to tell the truth and for Kenyans to know that we are various, we are suffering. So, Madam Speaker, a place between Kapedo and Lokori, 105 kilometers, is not inhabited. It is a no man's land. That is a whole area inside Turkana East, not inhabited. It is a place where the Pokots do their issues of cattle theft, cattle rustling, and all that appertains. Madam Speaker, I have lost relatives. I have lost my first uncle. I have lost sisters from cattle rustling, from cattle theft, close relatives, Madam Speaker. And as at now, the issue of vulnerability is coupled with how we are losing, or the rate at which we are losing cattle. Today you wake up, you are rich. In the next 1 minute or 1 hour, you are poor. Now, drought is there. The rate at which we are able to absorb the shocks of vulnerability is too high. Schools have been closed. Some have even been burnt by these Pokots. And, Madam Speaker, when we talk about illiteracy rates in these areas, poverty index in these places, it is one of the highest in this country. I want to applaud our President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, for initiating the operation. As it is now, yes, we are convinced that it's going to take long, and they are going to stay in those areas, in those corridors. However, there are continued reports that banditry is still going on. Yesterday, a place near Kainuk was raided. The other day, Lomelo was set ablaze by the Pokot. We hear other thefts in Samburu that are going on. In fact, this week, we have heard more than 4. Kainuk, another time, was again a no-go zone. The Pokots were engaging the army that is doing an operation there in a fierce battle, exchange of fire.
Thank you, Honorable Emathe. You may have noticed that you got extra 2 minutes because of the disruption with the mic. So your time is up. The Honorable Ariko.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand here as a member of representative for the great people of Turkana South. Madam Speaker, Turkana South is the most affected sub-county. Madam Speaker, please protect me. My colleagues are making noise. Madam Speaker, I just want to echo the motion by my women rep that cattle rustling has become a problem in Kenya. Madam Speaker, this phenomenon involves both inter and intra-ethnic as well as cross-border raids for livestock. Madam Speaker, we need to realize that cattle rustling has evolved. It has moved from the time of being cultural practice. Now it has been modernized to become a strategy to do expansion in other territories. Madam Speaker, a classic example, and let me just state very clearly that in the last 3 consecutive days, my constituency has been raided by my neighbors' Pokots. Yesterday, the 3 consecutive days, as I said, the Pokots raided Kakong. The next day, they raided Lokwar. And yesterday, they raided Nakwamuru. And all these animals were driven to Keses, a place we call as Turkana Hangilogitai. These animals were divided into 3. One went to one group, the livestock were driven to Hangilogitai, where they call it Keses. The second team went to Kadengoy, the current settlement for Pokots, that is inside Turkana South. The other one went to Ombolion, a place where I consider my grandfather's home. Madam Speaker, whatever the government has done, I believe it is something that His Excellency Dr. William Ruto stated in Nakale, where I hosted him when he was launching the drought relief. During that time, Madam Speaker, the president was explicit. He stated very clearly that he wants to end cattle rustling. Unfortunately, that same day, the Pokots raided Turkana East. The Pokot raided Marakwet West. Same time. Madam Speaker, I want to believe that the previous government was not serious to handle this menace of cattle rustling. The previous government either were ignoring the matter. The previous government, I believe, compromised the situation. Madam Speaker, we've been having so many investments by peace actors to address this issue of conflict in the northwest of Kenya. They have invested a lot of money. But I believe this, Madam Speaker, are the smooth strategy to address this issue of insecurity. Smooth strategy in the sense that it is not addressing the actual problem we are experiencing as conflict banditry zones. Madam Speaker, personally as a representative, I have the authority of the people of Turkana South. I want to request the government, before we have any discussion on peace between Pokot and Turkana, I need Pokots to go back to their territory so that we can have a conversation. You cannot end a conflict when the person in conflict with you is inside your house. It cannot happen, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, to finalize this, in Uganda, you cannot graze in Uganda. And
I give you a minute.
Minutes, Madam Speaker.
1 minute, Honorable Member for Turkana South.
Madam Speaker, our colleagues, the Pokots, do have dual citizenship. They do not need permission to graze in Uganda. The moment the government gave out an ultimatum of 3 days, they moved to Uganda. Currently, the Pokots are in Kademoi with so many guns. Unfortunately, the KDF is stationed in Kainuk. They are not doing anything. These Pokots are shooting KDF. Even yesterday, the KDF tried to follow these animals. Unfortunately, they could not get all the animals. They got almost 20% of the animals. So please, Madam Speaker, the government has to do something different.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Marwa, a member for Kuria East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Many of the members of parliament here who have served in Kuria in the past, and any other public servant who has served in Kuria, Madam Speaker, will tell you that Kuria used to have a big problem of cattle rustling, a very big problem. And this is a problem that had been there for many years. We were fighting and engaging in cattle rustling with the Kipsigis, with the Maasai, and with the Maasai, different sub-clans of the Maasai, probably 5 different. And then we are also engaging with the Kipsigis, and then on this other end, we're also engaging within ourselves, the 4 clans that are in Kuria, and also with Tanzania. So we used to have an extremely complex problem. Madam Speaker, it took the resolve of the people of Kuria themselves, and that was not an easy matter. 2007, when this matter was very, very hot in Kuria, I lost an election because I thought talking against it is something that would earn me more marks. Actually, I lost that election. 2013, I again lost an election because I was the only candidate who was speaking against cattle rustling. Madam Speaker, 2017, we had lost enough lives and more people thought that maybe there is a point in this young man, let's listen to him. I got elected in 2017. And I want to thank the current president because when he came 2017 after the elections, and I told him that this matter of cattle rustling must end in Kuria, he gave us support when he was a deputy president at that time. What am I trying to say, Madam Speaker? It must take our leaders, the Pokot, the Turkana, all the people who are involved in this matter, it must take them courage to say no to this menace. If you don't do it, and I want to assure you, I am a living example. If you don't do it, forget about these votes. If you don't say no and tell your people that you don't support it, it will continue. And let me tell you, my brothers and sisters, this is not a matter that is solved for you by external forces. It is not a matter that will be solved for you by government. It is not a matter that is going to be solved for you by the Ministry of Interior. It is not a matter that you will bring tanks to solve for you. It will not end. It must come from yourselves, and you must say no to this. And it is us leaders who fear to be voted out, and therefore we encourage this siege mentality. We get compromised by the very, very thugs who have no business with peace. They don't want peace. Madam Speaker, it will shock you that a cow that would ordinarily fetch 40,000, 50,000, 100,000 in the open market, actually, if you break it down, the person who is doing the raiding probably gets only 500 shillings or 1,000 shillings. Somebody in between there is making the markup.
And at the end of it all, the person losing is the one who has been raided and the cattle has left. So this whole chain of activity benefits no one. And that is why I want to ask and implore my colleagues. Just stand up and say no to cattle rustling. It will go away. You must do it yourselves. Be you Pokot, just say no. Be you Turukana, say no. Whoever it is that you are, just say no to this thing. Those that want to vote for, you'll be surprised. In the last 5 years, our mothers in my constituency, the children that have been born between the ages of 5 and below are so many. Why? Because now our mothers are able to sleep in Korea. And this is something that I have experienced, and I know that if all of us were to take it in this trajectory, it will solve the problems that all of us are going through. So I support you, my sister. It is not an error that we should continue having this kind of problems. And Madam Speaker, let me also conclude by saying government should also develop these areas. You cannot withhold development.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Lillian Gogo, member for Rangwe.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. Allow me to also add my voice and the people of Rangwe to this matter that is of national concern, and I want to appreciate the Honorable member from Turkana who's brought this matter to the floor of the House. Really, women leaders look at it differently in terms of loss of life, in terms of people being displaced, and general instability and insecurity in the places where they are domiciled. I wouldn't say, Honorable Speaker, that the county where I come from there is cattle rustling. But anything that happens to one of us as Kenyans happens to all of us. And it is unfortunate that when it is being mentioned that perpetrators, people who encourage, part of them come from this very own institution that is most respected, the August House. There are people who are grumbling. But it is true that leadership gives direction on what happens in where they come from. And one honorable member from Korea just said that when they made a bold decision to decide to bring to a stop the matter of cattle rustling, it happened. And it is our leaders, Honorable Speaker, who at times encourage evils to happen where we come from, for the benefit of feeling important, for the benefit of people depending on us, for the benefit of wanting ourselves to be held in a manner as if we are gods. This must be condemned in the strongest terms. We should be custodians of life. We should be custodians of peaceful coexistence with our neighbors, Honorable Speaker. And as I listen to members who come from these areas painfully narrate what is happening there, it is heart-wrenching, Honorable Speaker, that at this time such things can still happen in this country. And in which country is this that even KDF is deployed and people are still daring our defense forces that are supposed to guard our borders, Honorable Speaker? I think there is something we need to do soul searching in this country. And anywhere there is war, anywhere there is lack of peace, it is women and children who suffer, and people who have disabilities. I really want to encourage leaders and leadership from these places that they sit down and speak to their communities. What is it that is in a cow? What is it, Honorable Speaker, that is in wealth, that we lose lives and gain so much in terms of wealth, Honorable Speaker? What is it that we will carry to our graves, that we will have other Kenyans suffer, Honorable Speaker, to the extent that we want to own cattle, we want to own goats and sheep? What is it? What is it? What is it that is happening to this country? It is not about gender-based violence. It is not about, Honorable Speaker, teenage pregnancies. It is not about HIV and AIDS. And somebody still is bringing to this country death by way of people fighting over places for grazing cattle, fighting over how much cattle one owns. And I'm even told that in this country, within Kenya, there is no man's land for practicing evil in this century, Honorable Speaker. I should think, and I must emphasize, Honorable Speaker, that it is time Kenya got back into seriousness. Kenya has for the longest, Honorable Speaker, been the big brother in the African region, especially East Africa. And when in the floor, in this plenary, Honorable Speaker, we discuss disgusting things, Honorable Speaker, that brings down the name of Kenya, I should think as a mother, I should think as a member of this august house, that we need to embarrass ourselves and call ourselves dishonorable when we are part of the persons who propagate these things, Honorable Speaker. I want to add my voice to it, and I want to say that it is high time that this matter is discussed and looked at with the seriousness that it deserves and brought to a complete halt. Such are the times I remember Michuki, that when Mungiki was a menace in this country, he brought it to a halt once and for all. I thank you.
Very well. The Honorable Bowen, member for Marakwet.
Thank you, Honorable Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to air my voice on this issue of insecurity. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Member of Parliament for Turkana, the Women Rep, for bringing this issue. Madam Speaker, I'm serving my third term in this House. The issue of insecurity we discussed since I came to this Parliament. The issue of insecurity in Kerio Valley and the entire North Rift, Madam Speaker, it is something which has been going on for many years. Madam Speaker, let me say this, that the Kenya Kwanza government, led by His Excellency the President, Madam Speaker, went out seeking votes to the people of North Rift on one issue only. The pastoralists of North Rift, Elgeyo Marakwet, the Pokot, the Turkana, they don't know even this bottom-up economic model. These are people, Madam Speaker, who are seeking the top-down issue of insecurity. These are people who are crying that the police on the ground, they are unable to provide them with security. They are seeking the intervention of the president from the top to sort out these issues on the ground, Madam Speaker. The issue of insecurity cannot, the bottom-up cannot apply. Madam Speaker, as we speak, this House some weeks ago were informed about KDF going to help police in Kerio Valley. It's a very good idea. We all support as leaders. But Madam Speaker, we are saying it is too late. We have lost so many people. I have so many widows, so many orphans. Madam Speaker, I said one time in this House and in many other forums that we have taken our KDF to Somali. We have taken our KDF to DR Congo. We have taken elsewhere outside this country to provide peace. But we are going out to seek peace for other people when we don't have peace in our country. It is high time, Madam Speaker, that we are saying, as members of Parliament from North Rift, that all the police officers who are there to be removed and that area to be, KDF to be deployed and deployed permanently. Madam Speaker, the people who are killing our women and children in Kerio Valley are police. If you look at the bullets, the spent cartridges, it is written Government of Kenya, GOK. Madam Speaker, the banditry in Kerio Valley is escalated by police who are selling these bullets to the bandits. They are collaborators, Madam Speaker. We are not longer talking about normal bandits. We are talking about criminals enterprise, where there is a commercialization part of it. There are people who benefit out of this cattle rustlers. Where do these animals go? That is the question what we are seeking. Madam Speaker, in Kerio Valley, there are people who are not interested about livestock. They are interested about the business of arms and ammunition. Those are the people the government should be looking to those people. They are financiers. Why is it that the government, with all the intelligence officers, they are not able to track these people? Madam Speaker, I want to say this. The issue of treating these people and calling them cat rustlers, we must stop. These are robbers, these are criminals, and they must be treated, Madam Speaker, like those robbers who are robbing other people, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we are seeking to amend some sections of these security laws to have these people as treated as terrorists, they are robbers, and they are criminals, and they should be punished. Madam Speaker, I want to support my colleague here that we are going to unite against all bandits in Kerio Valley.
Thank you. The Honorable Nanok, member for Turkana West. Please trace the member for Turkana West and give him the mic.
I'm here. Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker. I arise to join my colleagues that have already debated on this motion, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, just as a point of information, if you look even at the attendance now of this House, Madam Speaker, the seriousness of the matters touching the North is actually a problem. The number of members who are debating this motion, who are present, who are listening, who are contributing, Madam Speaker, is wanting. This is how the North of this country has been relegated. And that is why matters that touch this part of the country cannot receive the due attention. But let me thank those who are here and want to thank profusely our brothers and sisters who don't come from this region of the North, but have taken their time to listen, to understand the challenges that we go through. Mr. Speaker, we must condemn banditry. We must condemn, and I condemn in the strongest terms possible, cattle rustling. But what we are dealing with, Mr. Speaker, has gone beyond that. I was in the committee, I was a friend to the Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations, who are having a joint sitting with their counterparts Interior, and they invited the CS Interior and Defense discussing about this matter. I went to that meeting wanting to hear the progress report of the operation that is going on in the North Rift. I did not get a report. There was no feedback that was given. Instead, matters of law were the ones that were being canvassed in that discussion, Mr. Speaker. It cannot be that way. We cannot play with the lives of people. We cannot play with the livelihoods of the people in the North Rift by law or by arguments, as I have had some members argue here. Mr. Speaker, the crux of the matter in the North Rift is on land. It is an expansionist agenda. Mr. Speaker, in the name of grazing lands, in the name of watering lands, in the name of seeking water and grass for these animals, something else has cropped up. And I appreciate that the CS Interior has come to grips with this issue. It is going beyond all those terminologies that we are using here. It is not cattle rustling, it is not banditry, it is going into terrorism. And you know what terror does, Mr. Speaker? It means you are kept on your toes permanently. The issue here is about displacing the people who live in these areas that are disturbed, that are lacking peace as it is now. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask my fellow leaders in this House, let us embrace progressive lifestyle that is accorded to us by education, by allowing interactions between Kenyans, by being peaceful. Let us preach the gospel of peace between our people. But where, Mr. Speaker, you hear community leaders threatening, using words like, we will deal with you, when you hear leaders commenting that we are going to give you the double dose of what you are giving or what you are receiving, then you have reason to fear. Then you have reason to say it is going beyond the needs of the people. Mr. Speaker, the operation must succeed. The operation must succeed, Mr. Speaker. We support the operation, and the Minister for Interior and Defense must not look back. They must succeed. That is the order by the President, and that is what we wish to see for the people of the North Rift. Mr. Speaker.